Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Marco, and I am the Education Program Administrator with Nashville Opera. I would like to welcome you all to our Helen Brown Memorial Masterclass featuring our Mary Raglan Emerging Artists. I would especially like to thank the Nashville Opera Guild for their generous support of the Helen Brown Memorial Masterclass series. Without further ado, our clinician today is the incredible Jason Ferrante. American tenor and voice teacher Jason Ferrante currently maintains a thriving career on stage and is one of the leading voice teachers in the opera industry, currently serving as voice teacher to many professional artists in training programs at Wolf Trap Opera, Nashville Opera, Minnesota Opera, Michigan Opera Theater, and Pensacola Opera. He also leads the classical voice discipline for young arts and serves as the judge for the Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions. I would also like to introduce our two Mary Raglan emerging artists that will be working with Jason today, Emily Cottam, who is our mezzo-soprano, and Frederick Schlick, who is our tenor. Now I will hand it over to Jason and we will get started.
Hi, everybody. I am joining you today from my house in South Florida, just outside of Miami. If you're going to be trapped somewhere for a year, this is it, I promise. This is my 8th year joining Nashville Opera in this capacity as a visiting teacher. And my first season was in the 2014 season. And it's always been one of my favorite parts of the year. I do really well doing drive-by teaching, in that my energy always feels a lot higher, and that I say, okay, well, we have maybe 10 minutes figuratively to be profound and to accomplish something, and that's what we'll try to do today. One of my best mentors when I was studying was the acting teacher and director Ed Berkeley when I was at Juilliard, and he was also one of my teachers out at Aspen. And at the beginning of every summer in Aspen, he would say, if you work on and accomplish and learn one thing this summer, we've really done something. And that's what I hope for us today. I could list 50 fancy things while you're singing and you'll forget 50 things. But if we can somehow find one thing and drive it home and make a point of it, I think we will have accomplished something. I want to congratulate the four of you for being involved in a professional training program in this particular year. Um, I celebrate 1 year of my shutdown this coming Friday, and I'd like to think, without being too insensitive, that we've passed the point of coming up with cute phrases for what's going on. This is what's happening. Here we are online. It feels strangely natural to me to talk on screen. I do look forward to the day where I don't see myself teaching, like literally looking back at me while I'm talking to people. I can't wait till that's done. Um, I live with a successful bass baritone, and when we work in person, I've now found it very weird to actually play chords while they're singing. So that's been pretty cool. But I don't think we need to apologize for our setting. This is what we're doing, and the important part is that your talent is currently thriving in 2021, and where you are in your development is intersecting this weird time. But that doesn't mean your throats aren't growing. And I like to think that your vocal cords have no idea what's going on out here. It just knows who you are and how you're singing and what you're singing. And in many discussions with young singers this year, we've spoken a lot about what should we be doing right now. That seems like a very popular and obvious question. And for me, for singers like you who have already established you have skill and you have prodigy and you have talent, other people besides Nashville Opera have recognized it before you've come here. It's great. I think it's important to be ready. And emotionally and mentally, that's your business. I don't find that's a voice teacher's business. A voice teacher empathizes with that, and we're here for you if that comes up. But our primary concern is to make sure that you can throw a ball again when it's game time. And I think that's going to put a lot of you who are doing that right now, that kind of work, ahead of the game when the ball gets rolling again. And there are days when this is really stressful. It's kind of depressing. It feels like one big caffeine fit to me. I have ups and downs every day. What I remind myself, and I encourage you to consider it once in a while without telling other adults how to think, you can sing and have a bad day at the same time. And that will happen in the future. You're gonna have a show on a day where you're like, I really wish I didn't have this show today. But flip it on its head a little bit. This very athletic, unemotional side of what we do, taking a breath, making your vocal apparatus buzz, and hopefully people in the room were entertained by it. And sorry if I insulted any of our woke folks who think entertainment's a bad word. I'm talking to 4 people involved in the city of Nashville, which is one of the most entertaining cities anywhere. That's what we do. We and don't think of entertainment as song and dance. It's you're entertaining the attention of someone else, right? I mean, think about what we do. Um, but you can have a bad day and do this, and let it be your saving grace. Let it be this thing that I'm going to use this, just making noise and vibrating in the room, and I'm going to use this as my escape. That's what I've done, and I really appreciate your giving me 5 minutes to project and dump on all of you. That was really great. You all look really happy, which is nice. I'm sorry that I can't be in Nashville right now with you. We normally would have worked and then gone had hot chicken or something after, but maybe another day down the road. I want to before we get started, I just want to thank Nashville Opera for keeping the training side of the company alive this year. Um, I've had a great time teaching and also performing there. I had wonderful performances as Little Bat and Susanna a few seasons ago that I'll never forget. And you're doing amazing things, and people notice, and I really appreciate that. So I can't think of a better way to start than with a tenor doing an American aria that not a lot of people know and that I have strangely sung. I did it at school. Yeah, I know. Can you believe that? So let's welcome Frederick Schlick. And Frederick, tell us for a second, if you don't mind unmuting, great. Tell us where you are today.
I am in Port Chester, New York, just north of New York City.
Fantastic. And tell us a little bit, very little bit, just tell us what you're going to start with.
So the first piece I'm going to start with is Be Not Afeared from Lee Hoybee's The Tempest. I picked this aria because my voice teacher, Bonnie Hamilton, is married to Jack Trussell, who premiered the role in the first place. And so I got the go-ahead to sing it from her. So, her mouth to God's ears. And it's been a great aria. I do love singing it. I wish there were more opportunities to find it online or find a production to watch, because it almost doesn't exist. But yeah, I'm excited to sing it for y'all.
That's fantastic, and what a great pedigree you come from. Bonnie, a fantastic teacher, and Jack, quite a tenor. Yeah, and I think, not to stigmatize this too much before you sing it, but it requires a certain athletic bravery in the passaggio, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Yeah. Someone really smart once said to me, the more you overthink the passaggio, the harder time you're going to have with it. So it's one of those things where you do kind of have to trust and go for broke. And it is quite fun for me. Yeah.
I think we all show up from the factory knowing how to sing until a lot of professionals tell us we don't.
Yeah.
So our job is sort of to bring that back to the beginning. Okay, great. And for everybody watching and for everybody in the room, the way we're going to do this today in this medium is I've asked everyone to sing through the aria one time with their track. Please forgive any lapses in timing, etc. That's just how this goes. But I want to go and I'll be taking notes as you go through. And then after that, I think we'll just go back and go line by line, talk about some issues that are going on, both positive and constructively critical, and maybe some exercises that go beyond my just saying, hey, this was a little pitchy. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about what you can do to enhance it. And let's look for some really great things that you're doing and talk about how to exercise keeping those strong as you go forward. So this is Frederick, who's going to sing Be Not Afeared from Lee Hoybee's The Tempest.
Thank you. All right. So
That is just like the beginning of a show with the audience members coming in.
I know. I know. My boss of the company just wants to come in and interrupt me.
It's
so-
amazing.
Yeah.
If anybody can have their phone go off, we can have the really authentic experience. Okay, let's go.
All right, here we go. Be not afeared, the isle is full of voices, sounds and sweetest that give delight and hurt not. Sometimes 1,000 twangling instruments will hum about my ears, and sometime voices that if I then had waked after long sleep, will make me sleep again. And then in dreaming, the clouds methought would open, and shourages ready to drop upon me. Now that I awaked, I cried to dream again.
So weird without applause. Goodness. Hey, fantastic. What a really nice, immediately engaging sound you have. And right out of the bat, in the upper middle around C and C sharp, on the staff in the upper middle, you have quite a wonderful balance of your support going on, which it's one of the trickier spots for younger tenors. It's none of us is a witch doctor or or a fortune teller, but I found that younger tenors who have that good resistance around C and C sharp like that tend to continue to grow in vocal size the decade after. I'm probably not the first person to say something like that to you as far.
No, I think the hardest part about this piece in general is not rushing wind when in the passaggio and overblowing. Which I mean, when you start on an F sharp and you have a hard time balancing in the room, it's hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the all right, so can we go through line? It's totally not necessary because I'm here at a piano, but are you near a keyboard today?
Yeah, actually the piano is over there, but
Oh, cool. But can you hear you can hear me?
Absolutely.
Great. So can we go through and talk about a few different moments in there?
Please,
And
yeah.
we'll work until it's time to switch to your second piece. All right. So the very first phrase of this thing, I'm gonna if I ever bring up anything about how I sang this in school a couple times, and we did a scenes production with some moments from this show. When do you inhale? Like, is it something that you're doing at a specific time, or is it different every day? Which is
To answer your question, the short answer is yes. So I do I do breathe differently every day. The teacher, I've been working with a new teacher recently, just because Bonnie hasn't been able to see people in person for about a year. Um, I try to envision the idea of my lower back opening,
Mhm.
so the bellows of the back, and not letting the chest rise too much. That being said, though, with that approach, it does take a little bit of extra time to get all the air in the way that I'd like to. So,
Yeah,
it,
I get it. And you know, back breathing is a discussion that we've all heard from people over the years. And my question, it can be semi-rhetorical or it can be completely literal. Um, for me, an open back breath is something that's a description for how the action ended up feeling, even though the action isn't actually throwing air into my lower back,
yeah,
right?
okay,
And to really get into a state of empathy with what you're actually doing that causes that feeling so that you can repeat that action over time.
mhm,
I think one of the more consequential things about this first phrase, and let's look at it, that in our psychotic tenor mind, we're convinced that the very first thing I do is an E vowel on an F sharp.
yes,
But the chords are really posing for that F sharp on the letter B,
okay,
which is a very specific look, which requires closure in the front and on the exit. See, we do talk in these terms of front and back and front and high and low. But if
mhm,
we can talk in the terms for a second as early and late,
yeah,
that we don't always start with what's late, even though it happens to be in the front of the mirror.
mhm,
It's in the back of your voice, but it's in the front of our what people see on us and what we see in the mirror. So that kind of screws with our brains a little bit sometimes. What we want is for you to be able to say that letter B, and all of your internal muscular vocal tract posturing for an eval to be postured as you do the letter B, not after it, if that
okay,
makes any sense. So, just as an exercise, would you mind holding a letter V on an F sharp for me once? And while you're holding the letter V, could you really stretch the muscles of the chest, the pharynx, and the soft palate into an E posture while you're holding a letter V?
yeah.
Yep.
So on V,
Yep. And while you're holding it, great. That posture is easier to find on a letter V than it is on a letter B. However, that's the posture you want in place at the split second of the attack on the letter B. And that means posturing as you inhale. An old-fashioned way of saying that is to breathe into the vowel. Yes, but watch that it's not exclusively your mouth cavity,
okay,
right? Because a
yeah,
lot of us can indicate, oh, look, I've breathed into a vowel, and everything behind it in the vocal source has no shape. So what's the point? And that's one of the things we all have to be very careful with when we do straw exercises, which are very therapeutic and helpful. That just watch that the vocal tract behind the straw is an UG or a univowel. Watch that it is one of those vowels that you intend on singing in public.
mhm.
Otherwise, you'll gradually build a muscle memory of goop, and then we go to sing an ah, and we're like, okay, where is that, right? All right, so let's take a breath without the track. Start this phrase and make sure that that posture is in place at the moment of attack.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Beep.
Great. So another little exercise, when onset attacks are weird, like a weird vowel and a weird part of the range, repeating them with short attacks is a great way to just sort of um, to deposit into the bank of muscle memory. Could you do 4 short attacks up there? Beep, beep, beep,
Beep,
beep.
beep, beep, beep,
Great.
beep.
That's a great, that was very deliberate in a way that I didn't think it was when you ran it with the track. Even though when you ran it with the track, it was beautiful and no one in their right mind should get upset about it.
Mhm.
We're being nitpicky because that's what you do with vocal prodigy.
It's a hard entrance, not gonna
Oh,
lie.
absolutely. And it's a completely different ballgame when people are watching.
Yeah. I mean, getting
Yeah.
nervous.
Yeah, totally. All right. So let's attack that one more time, then sing the whole phrase, and then we'll roll on to a couple other things.
So 4 attacks and then sing the
4
phrase.
attacks and then the phrase. You bet. Thank you.
Be, 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 be not afeard. The isle is full of noises.
Great, beautiful. Frederick, I don't know about you, but and the vowel on the word full is such a weird vowel to sustain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to say like that, and then to sustain it in the upper middle of your voice is a totally different ball game. Just keep them. I'll tell you something that my the teacher that had the most influence on me she was quite a vocal pedagogue, Beverly Peck Johnson. She would say to me once in a while, "Don't forget the oo vowel has some horizontal properties." So even when you're doing a letter like oo or however you're going to do it, that has curvature in the way we spell it, that the fact that the flesh of your soft palate is wired east to west like a timpani skin between your molars, that doesn't change. So can we just sing the isle is full of noises, and when you go up to the E sharp, that half step, could you let the soft palate actually widen on that movement as opposed to starting to spell the letter oo, which is something yeah.
Yeah.
So let's do the aisle.
The isle is full of noises.
Bravo. So that kept you attached to your chest resonance.
Yeah, and I actually do appreciate the wider approximation. I like have not too deep, but a little bit on the wider side.
100%. I mean, it's the front of your face, but it's the sort of toward the end of the vocal process if you think about it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much
Great.
In the cry space.
Great. When you sing sounds and sweet airs, what's that vowel for you on when you say and, which is not a word we should be really sustaining, right?
And
Cool. If you had to relate that to one of the 5 real vowels, E, A, A, O, or U, which one is it?
ah.
Cool. So if those are the 5 basic vowels, E, A, A, O, U, one thing I like to think about, you guys, when we're singing in languages that have exception vowels, so like English, German, French, that underneath that exception vowel is one of the 5 real ones. So if we're going to sing an O slash in French, sometimes I like to think that the O slash is in the mouth, but the chest is one of the 5 real vowels, right? So could we sing that? Could we pronounce on and the way you're pronouncing it in the mouth and in the pharyngeal space? But could the chest posture of the vowel be an ah?
Yes.
You know what I mean by that?
I think so. So the chest posture, you're talking like the having more chest voice component in the sound. Ah 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 ah.
Yes, the bottom half of the vowel, absolutely. So
Okay.
that the entire process isn't a vague vowel, which let's face it, we sing vague vowels in English.
Yeah.
And so to infuse it with a real posture of something that your muscle memory has. And, I mean, I'm a Sicilian Irish American, and it's easy for me to say this, but like the Italians sing very well because of the muscle memory of 5 vowels.
Right.
You know what I mean? But regionally, there are still corrupt and weird vowels that need to be discussed, and same with all of us. So let's sing sounds and sweet airs. And on and, let's go for the variation of pronunciation in the mouth, but good old ah intention on the southern half of it. Let's do it.
Sounds and sweet airs.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I love it. And that's, I think, around C and C sharp for tenors is such a crucial spot. There are people probably way smarter than all of us in this room who have written doctoral essays on the passaggio. But I think of the famous passaggio as like driving in 3rd gear, and getting through C and C sharp as getting into 1st gear without stalling. It sort of will preclude you from going any further if that's screwed up. So you're doing such an amazing job at those 2 pitches. I'm very impressed with that. Whoever's worked with you, you're not just resonating in your face. There's the source material is there, and that's really, really noticeable and good. Moving ahead to when you sing that if I then had waked. What vowel are you doing on waked?
Not if I learn hard work. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
open.
think
It's an open E with some sort of a glottis underneath of it.
cool. I think it's a little nebulous for
Okay.
if it were on a different pitch, I don't think it would be. But I
Okay.
think here we are talking about those trigger notes, do and C and C sharp for you up there. Um, could you try a little device for me and see if it works? And if it doesn't, just we'll go back and edit it out for any future viewing. Just kidding. But can we put a shadow vowel on had on the final D and have that shadow vowel be the exact vowel you want to sing waked in? So we get that if I then had the way, as opposed to something nebulous on the
Yep.
shadow vowel. Because the chances that if you do a nebulous shadow vowel, the next vowel you sing will probably be its love child and kind of want to linger in the same position.
Absolutely.
So be
Yep.
very specific there. What's the ethic, you guys? So it's not just in this moment. When you have a final voiced vowel consonant that you can put a shadow vowel on, it's very useful to sing a shadow vowel that resembles the next vowel so that there's a vocalic harmonization that happens. And if you do,
Jason, this is your 2-minute warning.
thank you. It's like being on a plane. I love it. So that your muscle memory after a while, if you do that on purpose, will take hold. I don't think our muscle memory remembers things we do accidentally. I think there's got to be that intent in there. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's do that once. Let's put a shadow vowel on the D that of had that is the vowel for waked. Thank you, Frederick.
Not if I then had waked.
Great. That sounds already more complete to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's definitely something. I mean, I know tenors do it all over the place. It's a Pavarotti staple to shadow vowel and then go and to reset the larynx. So
yeah, I mean yes, and I love them all, but diction teachers across America will tell you that it's a it's a
No.
it's a fault, right?
Yeah.
I would kill to have his faults. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, real quick, this when you sing make me sleep again, that vowel on again, when we speak that in English again, it's unstressed. It's not intended to be sustained. And here we are sustaining it. That's not Mr. Hoiby's fault. It's so beautiful. It's just that making English lyrical, that's what happens. When we take English from spoken accent to lyricism, we then have to fold in something that's not in the spoken part, and that is vowel legitimacy in the vocal tract, right? So, like we said before about having the source part of your vowel be legit when you say again, let's find some legit depth and shape underneath that. Can we just say again on the two B naturals just for the sake of time?
Again.
Great. And that was really beautiful. Do that one more time. And the soft palate width, the way a timpani skin stretches to get acoustic, let those rhyme on these two vowels. Again. Change your pharyngeal source. Let the soft palate width be the same.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Again.
Bravo. Because then when the ceiling is uniform, the rebound energy really fuels where you're actually changing the vowel. I would like to just talk about one more spot, and then we'll move on to the next not famous piece.
I mean, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, talk to me. Talk to me.
We don't have to. I would love to work more. This piece, it's no one really does it or works on it.
So I'm going to make an executive decision since my mic is on. We're going to do a little bit more on this, and then we're going to touch the other one.
Okay.
After. Cool. Okay, great. Awesome. So when you do this G sharp to the A. And okay. Are you taking a breath? You're not taking a breath until after riches, right?
Yes.
Riches. Cool. So this G sharp is tied for a moment before it becomes the A.
Yes.
On the tie moment, that beat that's tied in this thing, that would be a great place to let your soft palate width, your pharyngeal stretch, your sternum stretch, switch to that of the high A without taking the chords there yet so that you're ready. Sha, as opposed to, I felt like you kicked in that stretch beautifully on the A. And one of the things about stretching all of the canvases in our body that allow us to create acoustic is that we can do that without changing pitch. And keep in mind that you can also do that without separating the bones. The bones don't have to move when the canvases move. Yeah, you can clench your teeth and yawn. I do it all the time when I don't want someone to know that they're boring me. Right? The bones are fixed, and then you have these canvases that stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, in that counterintuition is how noise happens. All noise happens because of counterintuition. I hit a drum. The only reason you hear it is because the drum didn't move when my hand did. Right? So get into this sing on your skeleton a little bit. Have that be a thing that doesn't change for you. You know? So when you're on this G sharp, stretch the canvas, the fabrics, the muscles, whatever you want to say, the movable parts into the A position and then switch to the A.
So essentially prep the high note with the shape it's going to be in.
Yes, and with an actual athletic move, not just a thought.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not like think space as you go up. That's too vague.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if I said for me to get from Miami to Nashville, go north and make a left, I have not lied to you. I've told you could not take me to court and sue me for malpractice. However, I left out every piece of essential information that'll get you to where you were actually going.
Mm-hmm.
So I could say, "Oh, think gathered as you go up." There's nothing like being vague to really throw an athlete off.
Yeah.
You know, be very specific. Stretch the parts on a specific beat, then switch to the A, and then we'll move on. Let's do it. And go ahead. And well done. And then I think when you practice doing that stretch at a very specific beat all of the time, then the body memorizes the clock of an action.
Yeah.
Exactly when to do it. And then it's like a trained dog. Really good. I would love to spend more time on this, but I want to make sure we divvy up our time on the repertoire as planned. I think this is a great choice. I wish I could hear you in the room unaccompanied, but I'm sure that will, unamplified, but I'm sure that'll happen at some point soon. Go through and make sure every attack on this thing is right on the money.
Yeah. So when you say the attack, you're talking like you're saying on the skeleton, on the body. You want,
yes.
and you're looking for very deliberate. You're looking for much more deliberate vowel choices.
Absolutely, and that's in your practice time, so that you can be an artist in front of people.
Yeah.
You know, Michael Phelps lifts weights. I promise you. I've never seen him take them into the pool.
Absolutely.
But yet he still does them. And give yourself a chance to memorize all of these things. And with this term, this is a nice segue to the next piece. The term of an onset that we all talk about, and teachers are supposed to sound fancy if they talk about it. What is a good attack, a good onset? For me, I think of it as when language, pitch, and support, three things that are happening at all times, when those three things antagonize each other at the same time. So if be not afeared, I have B, that's the language. The pitch is an F sharp. And the support is this thing I'm doing where my muscles in my belly are antagonizing the muscles around my breathing apparatus. And I'm not going to tell adults that they should lean out or pull in. That's your business. You're a professional. I will say this. You have to choose the one that allows you to not scoop, that allows you to fire the language and the pitch at the same time. So if a Heimlich style breathing that grab the piano and lift it off the floor like dislodge steak from your throat, if that's your approach and you can still time your vowel and throat with that, good on you. Great. If you can't, maybe it's an opportunity to pick one that lines you up. Your breathing is beautiful, Frederick. It's great. It's absolutely fantastic. And I'm only seeing, your torso on here. But really great. So now we're going to segue into the little known Che gelida manina from La Boheme. And I'll be watching the clock. We'll get fewer minutes to work on this, but that's just how life goes. But let's hear it.
Okay.
And then we'll pick out a few money moments in there.
Sorry, 1 second. Che gelida manina, se la lasci riscaldar, cercar che giova, al buio non si trova. Ma per fortuna una notte di luna, e qui alla luna l'abbiamo vicina. Aspetti, signorina, le dirò con 2 parole chi son, chi io che faccio come vivo. Chi son? Chi son? Sono un poeta. Che cosa faccio? Scrivo e come vivo? Vivo. In povertà mia lieta, sciallo da gran signore, rimedini d'amore, per sogni e per chimere, e per castelli in aria. L'anima milionaria, dolor dal mio forziere, ruban tutti i gioielli, 2 ladri agli occhi belli. V'entrar con voi a purora ed i miei sonsati, e i miei sogni miei, tosto si rieleguar, ma il furto non m'ancora. Poiché m'ha preso a stanza la speranza. Perché mi conoscete, parlate voi, e parlate chi siete. Vi piaccia dir.
Welcome back to Nashville Opera Studios. Just kidding. Way to go.
Thanks.
Listen, to get up and sing this aria and sing a really good high C on Zoom television like that, somebody should buy you lunch. That was great. Awesome. So I'm gonna jump right in. I'm gonna ask a question that I think we spend too much time on in vocal instruction, so I'm gonna spend some time on it. On high notes as a tenor, what does your tongue do?
So the tongue lifts out of my throat more so than it would on other notes.
Yeah.
But the problem is I have learned how to sing high notes by carrying more chest voice than I need to, which actually in turn ends up making it flip off into a less well adducted high note.
Great.
And this is something I have been really working on in the past few months, especially because I thought I was doing it right. And then I went to a teacher and they were like, no, not quite. So, yes. It's C.
That's always a good answer. Yeah.
It always feels like the B natural and C are slightly too light. And I know they can have more harmonics to them. And I'm looking, but I've also I studied with Jack Lavigne for a little bit too.
Hey.
And Jack
Sicilian power. Sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Sicilian power. That's what I'm saying. I mean, my entire family's Sicilian. But as far as that goes, when he talks about the high notes, especially after A natural, everything is supposed to be in a more head dominant, voce finta kind of place. And I have not found that security yet.
Yeah.
Working on it, but
Sure.
it feels too light.
Yep. So Jack, if you're watching or you watch this in retrospect, hey, and yeah, I agree with that. I think every piece of athletic advice we get comes with a footnote. That it's never just the blanket statement, right? There are so many corresponding things we should define. You triggered something in a good way. When you talk about head dominant resonance versus chest resonance, there's a funny word, that word chest, because we use it, right, as an adjective of sorts to talk about registration and resonance. It is also the word for the anatomy. And what we have to be careful that we don't do is that in going for a more heady connection into our top, that we don't falsely disconnect the chest anatomy, thinking we're disconnecting chest resonance. Because your highest head resonance, the chest anatomy needs to be arguably even more alive than if you were singing with a chest resonance. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
So,
And Jack talks about that a lot, is the sensation of it has to be rooted more into the larynx, which is the way he talks about it.
yeah, sure. And think of the larynx as part of as the northern part of the chest muscle apparatus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I think, yes, you're right on the money with this sort of gentler, more head focused approach above A natural. But I think the chest, literally the muscle length on the sternum, should probably increase when you do that. So when I'm in the shower, I sing Verdi mezzo arias in my mezzo voice for fun. And I actually get more control of what I'm doing when I let the muscles of the chest expand. Now, that's anatomy. That's not registration. That's not chest voice. That's not belting. That's not voce di petto, right? It is just this part of my body. So do you mind if I jump around a little bit? Can we do aspetti signorina, le dirò con due parole? And thank you for not saying aspetti. That doesn't make you more Italian. I've never understood how many people from the eastern seaboard of America say aspetti. Like, I'm like, really? That's weird. Sorry.
It's not Napolitano, so I don't really know.
But even if you were from Naples, if you got up and sang Rodolfo, you wouldn't do it.
Wouldn't do that, right? Exactly.
You know what I mean? Can you imagine if everybody from Nashville got up and they sang like Britain art songs with a Nashville accent? It's just not what happens.
Exactly.
But I'm also smart enough to know not to eat the bones when I eat chicken wings. Use your reasoning skills. It's okay. All right. So let's do aspetti signorina. And when we do chi son chi, now we have this beautiful moment language-wise here and range-wise of an eval on key in a part of my range that I have a nice chest balance. You. When I say I mean you. Really, really stretch the chest muscles, the anatomy, not the registration, not the formants, not any of that. The physical anatomy on key, so that when you go into the head formants up top that you're looking for so smartly, that you're doing it on a paved sidewalk. The problem is we get into trouble when we switch into headier balances up top, and all of a sudden we're on wet cement.
So
and a stomping dance and a tiptoe dance should be done on the same sturdy floor.
Totally. Now, my question to you is that stretching of the chest,
Yeah.
Are we talking around the nipple area, high chest,
Yes.
the nipple area?
Yeah.
So I should be feeling a sensation of expansion throughout
Yes.
the thoracic belt. Right?
Knowing that east to west, and that the goal here is to expand, not to max out.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So not snap, just bend a little bit.
Okay.
So let's feel that. And what does it feel like to have the I work with one really talented musical theater soprano who we do chest voice a whole lot to posture head voice. So what would it look for to have that chest voice posture? That's not the tone. That's the posture of Frederick's body under your heady tone. That's what we're looking for. So find it, but let's find it so that we're not just broad brush stroking an idea. Find it specifically on that eval. The eval surprisingly has a lot of good chest tension when it's done well, you know? So if we do keys on, keep, then switch the registration, but hold on to that body.
Okay.
Jason, this is your 2-minute warning, and then we have to move on to Emily.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so let's do Aspetti Signorina. Aspetti signorina, le dirò con 2 parole che son.
Maybe? Or is it the next key that you're worried?
The next key.
It's the,
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole point.
Son, che son.
Nice. Beautiful B flat. Watch that you don't say key son. Just key son. Yeah.
Yeah. Shadow.
You're taking the pavarotitis an extra step. You're putting a shadow vowel on a vowel. It's awesome. Full disclosure, I don't know if you would hear that from row 40. I'm hearing it right now because we're all like this in each other's face and on each other's mic. That said, but the reason I don't want you to put that in there because you don't want to dissolve that good E posture you're getting on the chest.
Mm-hmm. I just hate S's. I think S's are my mortal enemy. They really are. Anyway, I'll stop making.
Yep. One last talk about the tongue because we're gonna have to move on. This is how this started. Back in I asked a question and I forgot it. On high notes for tenors, I think there's got to be a strong element of tip of the tongue retraction. Because look, if the root of your tongue, here's your teeth, here's your tongue, clearly, can't you tell? That if the root of your tongue, the fat part of your tongue is under lava from high note pressure, right? Which it is, you guys, come on. The tip of the tongue retraction will actually displace the root of the tongue into that very position that all of your vocal pedagogy books are describing in pictures, right? Because you're acting like a good defensive line against a strong offense. In order to stay at the line of scrimmage, sorry for the football reference, that you have to have an opposing energy happen there. So if here's my big glass of sweet tea. If I put my hand down into the glass, where does the tea go? Yes. Spilling tea at Nashville Opera. Okay. So allow yourself once when you say qui son, could you let the tip of your tongue retract? What happens is the rest of your tongue, the other 98% of it, will go up and forward, I promise.
Yeah.
And go home and, I'm sure you seem like a fellow that has done this. Look at still photos of some of our greater tenors. The tip of the...
It's an alarming and stark difference from what we've got now as far as even just embouchure. I mean, if you go back and you look at these old guys, the shape of the mouth is much boxier and wider, and the tongue is much higher. Whereas now I'm seeing a lot more spooning in the tongue.
Yeah, and true. And that what you just described is the final look. How did we get to that look? The tip of the tongue on the top leans back a little. It never goes anywhere because you have the Baltimore Ravens offense coming at you to displace you up.
Right.
Okay. So on purpose, as an exercise, can we just feel that there? Just on key song. And I'm faking on the mic, so it sounds way easier. Okay, let's do it. Great.
Yeah, that felt a lot better. That was good.
Well, bravo. Get that out of after key out of there. I'm hearing Kia son.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
My negotiate. I love the shadow vowels. I love them, but just not after a vowel. That is one level of overachievement, man. That's awesome. Fantastic. Before we switch on into Mezzo Land, I could spend 2 hours talking to you about this aria. Watch a few little moments where you can economize your behavior by assimilating N into the letter P and turning it into a double M. If you can do it at impovertà mia lieta, impovertà. Yeah.
Okay.
Use the N. This and that's how it's pronounced anyway. It assimilates. Great thing to do. Sing talor dal mio, and then we'll stop. When you have a dental consonant on a high note, the letter L, that tongue retraction isn't just suggested, it's necessary. Real quick, here's the teeth, here's the tongue. Ta. For a split second, I'm lunging my tongue forward out of home base to put a letter L on talor. Where's home base? It's that way.
Right.
Guys, sometimes next is musically, next means what's on the next on the clock. In our body, the next movement could be that way.
Right.
It's totally legit. That has anything to do with the clock. Real quick, talor dal mio forziere, and then we'll stop. I'm not going to go after that. If we do any more work, we'll talk about the C, which was pretty damn good. But let's do ta. Let the tongue retract. It's the thing that'll get it out of your throat. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Listen, these are drive-by sessions, you guys, but I hope we made a few points that you can to run with, and most importantly to me as a singer, I respect the fact that you were good yesterday. So this is about assimilating this with what you already have going for you, okay? Really, really great. Frederick, it's really nice to get to know you. I look forward to more interaction somewhere. Yeah, I hope one day I'm the emperor behind your kalaf or something. That'd be great.
Oh, that would be super fun.
And you know what? And you're so talented. Ask from permission from a very few people. Otherwise, make your decisions. I think you'll be in good shape.
Thank you. That is something. I do suffer from too many teacheritis for sure. So
I get it. I mean, you don't expect to be someone who sings in front of 4,000 people who are paying a lot of money to see you and not care about how it's going. We get it. But as a talented adult, streamline your group and trust that when you make big decisions for yourself, that confidence reads to other people.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. It's so great to hear you. And now we're going to move on to Miss Emily. Emily Cottom, how are you?
I am good.
So Emily, is this your first year out of school?
No, so this is my second year.
Second year,
okay.
Okay.
I graduated from my master's in 2019.
Great.
Yeah.
And you're an Arizona Sun Devil, yeah?
Yeah, go Devils.
Congratulations. Emily and I were talking before the class. My partner is from Tempe, Arizona, and it's kind of our second home. And I've had an affiliation with the place for about 16 years now. It's no offense to Nashville, which I absolutely adore. Arizona is my favorite place, and I'm a Baltimore boy who studied in New York and now lives in Miami. So that makes no sense, right? But it's great, and what a great experience you must have had there. So I'm so glad, and I'm also really glad to see someone from your school in a program. It's fantastic. I'm always waiting. It's great. So tell us what you're going to start with while I grab my trusty score.
Alrighty, so today I will be starting with the composer's aria Sein wir wieder gut from Ariadne auf Naxos by Richard Strauss.
Fantastic. And just a gentle reminder to everyone, singing Strauss with a pianist and a conductor is hard enough. With a track is its own category in the Olympics. And all of these, if you're a non-singer watching today or watching this later on YouTube, it's harder than you can imagine. And on the same note, I hope that classical singers, those of us who know that we work at a certain level with music making, I hope this has given you a little respect for our popular artists who sing on tracks all the time, that you're living on two internal clocks at the same time, and it can be very it's just weird to find your footing sometimes. So hats off and respect to people who do that all the time as well. I cut you off. Go ahead, Emily. Go ahead.
Just as like a heads up, I've been finding for some reason today it likes to cut out randomly, but it stays in time, so I'll just keep singing. But if the music cuts out for like a couple beats.
Sure. For everyone watching, if something weird blips on Zoom, I'm sure you're not going to be shocked, and we'll still nominate you for a Grammy for this performance. Thank you, Emily.
Let's see. If it wants to start. I had it connected just a second ago. Hold on.
Don't worry. This would be a good place to fill the time with a commercial, wouldn't it? Actually, I will say, I hope if you're watching, you will visit NashvilleOpera.org and see what the company is up to, and read a little bit more about the 4 Ragland Young Artists this year. All right.
Alrighty, we're ready.
Do it.
Seien wir wieder gut. Ich sehe jetzt alles mit deinen Augen, die Tiefen des Daseins unermesslich. Mein lieber Freund, es gibt Nachtles auf der Welt, das lässt sich nicht sagen. Die Dichter unterlegen ja recht gute Worte, recht gute. Jedoch, Mord ist in mir, Mord, Freund. Die Welt ist leblich und nicht fürchterlich den Mutigen. Was ist denn Musik? Musik ist eine heilige Kunst, zu versammeln alle Arten von Macht, wie Cherubim einen strahligen Thron, und darum ist sie die heilige unter den Künsten. Die heilige Musik.
Nice.
All right.
What a great voice you have.
Whew, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. I'm gonna ask you a question first, and I'm just gonna just ruin the mystery of this. I'm gonna set it up so that you all roll your eyes internally, but then I'm gonna flip it on its head. Have you been told a lot by people in the past? Maybe you'll say no. Have you ever thought maybe you're a soprano?
All the time, yeah.
Yeah, I disagree. And
Yay.
I want to be on record with that, knowing that my disagreement is no more legit than someone else's thought that you're a soprano. That's you, right? So none of this is in the Constitution. We can say whatever we want, right? And eager young singers, it's amazing. If I said go in the kitchen and stand on the kitchen counter and sing, you'd probably do it because I asked. Right? It's so silly. So you're going to hear that, and you're going to continue to hear that forever. For whatever it's worth, the first time I did Ariadne auf Naxos, Julius Rudel was conducting, and our composer was a soprano. And I actually saw Teresa Stratas do it at the Met. it's the tessitura wise, this feels considerably higher than Poggiamore ever would, right? Here's why I don't I the idea that just saying someone is a soprano because you think it sits high, the voice, is like saying that car is a BMW because it's blue, right? The paint color has nothing to do with the make and model at all. I definitely work with a soprano whose voice is darker than yours, and she's a Violetta. You know what I mean? It's just, but I think around B flat and B natural in your middle, in the upper middle, that sounds like a first break to me, which sounds like that's why you should live in mezzo soprano land most often. And what does that even mean, you guys? It just happens to be a set of pieces that existed before our delineations of Fach, right? So take it with a grain of salt. Okay, so can we just jump in and do a couple phrases at a time?
Sure, yeah.
Great, awesome. So you said your teacher was Carol, right?
Yeah, she was Carol. She is Carol. My current teacher is Jordan Schreiner.
Oh, cool. Yay. Fantastic. So with Carol, I'm sure you got such a wonderful dose of German language work.
Yes.
And I can tell. It's great. It's really, it's really good. For my own taste in this particular composer's repertoire, I think the final ERs of certain words could have a little bit more vowel space around them.
Gotcha.
And I'm thinking, right, it's sein wir wieder gut.
Gotcha.
Especially on quick notes. Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just think by giving it more space in this context, we're loaning lyricism to a syllable that when spoken wouldn't have a lot of lyricism, right? But because it's not stressed. And that's one of our things we deal with language, you guys, is that we are stressing and unstressed. We're stressing the normally unstressed. And that feels weird if it's not in your muscle memory, which makes Italian an easier language to sing in for most people. So can we sing the first line with a little more space? We're looking at the final ER after wieder, real quick.
Sein wir wieder gut, sein wir wieder gut.
Absolutely. What it does is involuntarily creates vowel space on the note before and after it. By not collapsing there. So you guys, sometimes we have to be very unmusical and sing our offbeats with a lot more expansion and space, which because over time they start to lose space because we've been painting music making and poetry on them so much. And I liken it to walking down a sidewalk. We have 10 squares of sidewalk, and we don't want every third square to be wet cement. Do you know what I mean? And we want to change the dance, but not necessarily the quality that we're walking on. So that requires you to be a little unmusical now and then, and that's it ends up just sounding legato. It doesn't sound unmusical. Cool. So I'm just looking at my notes real quick. Good. So when you do, are you doing something? And this is totally valid. Are you doing sort of a exasperated exhale as part of the componist character?
I would like to think yes, but my breath is like, like many people, my breath is something that I've really been, especially with all this, downtime that I get. Previous to this contract starting, I've been spending a lot of time working on my breath technique because that was easily the weakest part of my technique. And a lot of that has to do with like punting too much air to generate pitch or just in general like over filling.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely something I wouldn't be surprised if you heard because like there was just so much leftover air.
Yeah. That's a valid way to handle in between moments. I don't know if any of you there's some footage out somewhere on YouTube. It's really a cute video of Dame Kiri Tekanawa working with the American soprano Layla Clare, who I absolutely love, who they were working on some lines in Poggiamore, and Dame Kiri suggested going, mi rende il mio tesoro, just to sort of to dump. Yeah. That's good for your lungs. We have to be careful when we're dumping air like that in between, that we're not depleting our pharyngeal vowel structure while doing it. Otherwise, when we come back in, we're coming back into sort of a collapsed shape. So what I was sort of getting was, sein sind unermesslich, mine. So I got the last thing before mine as sort of an exhale.
Okay.
And it was safe for you to do it there because it was on a lower safe pitch. But I think cumulatively, how we behave on the safe pitches builds the ethic of how we sing on the top stuff.
Definitely.
So just watch about not sort of blowing out too much. I heard it happen throughout the aria a lot. At the same time, it's a valid character decision. So I should let me yeah, no, totally. Let me revise my comments to say if you do it, watch that your throat structure and vowel structure isn't just for inhaling.
Definitely, yeah.
Sure. So why should the inhale be an ah and the exhale be a bleh? Right? Why can't the exhale also be an ah? And that's maybe a way to think about it if you employ that as a character device, because it reads really well. It's cool. I mean, he's frustrated, right? To say the least. I'll let somebody else talk about the depths of that character. Cool. So I felt the same before you it really showed up at die dish. You breathed really earlier. You said da da ich sagen. Indeed, you were really inhaled and waiting there.
Okay.
We can't do, I don't want to go back and pull tracks, but just keep this as a note for the future. Wait until you hear E flat major happen to take your breath. Okay. So you da 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 da, ich sagen, bum ba 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 ba, di dish. Because you were sort of, you had inhaled back in the previous, in C major, and you were just waiting.
I think I know what happened there. What happened there is I was like at the very last dregs of my breath at the end of that phrase, so I was just like, So yeah, but I'll work on that. I love mezzo from the previous phrase rather than
I love mezzos. They always admit when something was a little wonky. It's so everybody take note. It's great. Cool. These these when you're doing these jedoch before we get into our first major high note event, harmonically we see this in the orchestra. Yeah, da-da, da-da. Everything's getting higher. We're going to a new line of latitude each time. As an exercise, could you sing these? It's 5 of them, right? Yeah, there's 5 short jedochs before we get to the jump. Could you think of each one of those 5 jedochs as one line of latitude lower in your musculature, while the orchestra is going up? Yeah. Because to eventually arrive at our lowest line of latitude before the Mutfreunds and Die Welt would be really great for getting some guts under that. So, and that here's counterintuition again, you guys. If the harmonies in the orchestra is going like this, what's the opposite look of that on your body? And this is all relative to the standing horizon, by the way. If I stood you on your head, we would have to talk about it differently. But the vocal process would still work in the same order, if that makes any sense. All right, so without the track, as frustrating as this can be, can we just do those jedochs where line of latitude is 1 click lower for each one? So we get jedoch, 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 down, down, down. And that doesn't mean darker vowel. Darker vowel doesn't mean low. It just means weird throat. Cool, awesome. Fabulous. Then you're not standing on your vocal toes for a high G.
Yeah, it felt much more, less frantic, for sure.
Sure, awesome. Very good. And I imagine, I'm just basing this on other conversations with other mezzo-sopranos, that, sometimes you get trapped in this, I have to make a certain color choice to sell my voice type.
All the time. And I'm really working on that lately. I practice with my ears plugged all the time just to make myself stop. Yeah. Oh, I'm not a beefy mezzo, so
yeah, I mean,
trying to make that happen.
I think it's valid though. I mean, we pick clothing every day. I mean, what the externals look like are important. I would say as an adult, the compromise is to throw that out the window in the vocal gym and have it just be about doing dumbbell curls and sit-ups that have no color. So think about your vocal training, your scales, your exercises that you do. The analogy of putting on a primer coat before you paint. let that be that. No art, no, it's just to have the muscles have shape. And so when you go out and you put on the rented velvet costume as the componist,
Yeah.
that you can add the colors you want and you have a dried and ready sidewalk that you can dance on. And I think when we muscle memorize colors, it's hard to then add colors to the already painted.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So that very good approach on that. Going back to something I said to Frederick about an oo vowel has to have some horizontal properties because you do. So it's not like you're changing the shape of your skull on an oo versus an ah. I never see your skull change size when you blow into a high note.
Yay.
And I've never seen a clarinet change size when it plays high because it's made of material that doesn't. That's why wind is then conducted. We actually need our skull to stay the same in order for noise to happen. So can we do these two Mutfreunds? Just the Mutfreunds, don't go on to die Welt. And let's have a soft palate that has width between the molars.
Okay.
This way. Mut ist in mir. A little trick here. Are you breathing before the second mut or not?
Yes.
You are. You can put, when we're talking about the final ER and IR living in a vowel world,
Yeah.
you could put a little more vowel world on the cutoff of the IR and mir, and you'll be set up for mut. Mut ist in mir, Mut Freund.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Let's do it.
Jason, this is your 2-minute warning.
Thank you.
Mut ist in mir, Mut Freud.
Great. So the work you would have used air to create space, you would have used work to create a space on a G you already created on the cutoff of Mio.
Yeah.
Really, really important, that sort of preparation. Okay, so die Welt ist lieblich. The reality of this phrase is that the crest and the high note is not on the downbeat. It's on beat 2. As musicians, we will cave into the power of 4/4 and create space on 1. When that happens and the high note is not on 1, we've then overspaced too soon. So if you could trust to have the G of this phrase not be open yet.
Yeah.
And I don't mean in mouth size. We have to watch you guys that you develop a distinction between space as a square footage thing and spaciousness as a term applied to the sound you're making.
Yeah. My teacher and I have been working on delaying the flare as I go up in pitch.
Sure.
So, like opening up later, because I tend to do exactly what you're mentioning, is open too soon.
Very astute observation. Remember when I said that any of our athletic instructions always come with a footnote, sort of the small print of ingredients? Describe to me what parts of your body are flaring when you flare. So that it's not a look, it's an action.
I'm a very visual person, so the way I feel and see it is it kind of like opens up like a fan backwards. That's how it feels and how I kind of approach it. But.
Great. To spend some time trying to choreograph for yourself what the actual moves that earned you that adjective are.
I guess like an inward smile, like like a smiling muscles on the inside.
Cool. That I mean, I think that's in the right direction. Just to be very specific about what you're moving and when you're moving. Just to practice not overspacing that G. Can we do that 4 times? Just die Welt, not the B flat. Die Welt, die Welt. No art, just you making noise. Everyone watching, please forgive her if this is too simple. Okay. Great. So now let's sing the phrase in context very specifically, not overspacing on the G, and even worse, not half spacing on the G.
Okay.
Right? So the desire path would be, oh, I'll give a little bit of the B flat space, but not all of it. And humans follow the desire path thing. One of the great examples of that is when instead of walking to the corner and making a right, we cut through the grass. Right?
Yeah.
We do that because it makes our trip quicker. In 10 years, you have a dirt trail. And somebody has to plant grass again, right? So walk to the corner, real space, then open. Die Welt and then come back. Why? Because the notes do. Let's do it.
Yes.
Yep. Wonderful. Thank you for being that specific. Man, your voice is loaded with personality. It's
you.
great, man. Really, really good. Can we, before we move on, can we look at the held E flats on Musik before we get to the A flat section?
Yeah.
So the where you're doing a Musik. When we get to one of A flat major on the next page, watch that you haven't given into that a collapse into one of a 4/4 measure. Actually, on one, take the soft palette east to west stretch and increase it. Musik ist, as opposed to Musik ist.
Yeah.
And don't have it be a look, have it be an action.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I know you'll do more than once. Let's just do that. Musik. Fantastic. And I think what I'm talking about is what you described as not getting to the flare or timing the flare of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But by increasing that stretch, remember, you can stretch your muscles of the vocal apparatus and the resonating chamber, however, let's pick one of the 3,000 terms we use. You can stretch those muscles and the geographical square footage inside doesn't change at all. So I can tighten bed sheets on my bed. The frame doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's how we have to think of coexisting hard matter and soft matter. On that note, and you can continue that stretch when you do unter den Künsten. What's great is this, just the stretching muscles will create the effect of a crescendo. And so that crescendo stops being pour more water into this. It means intensifying the receiving structure. Let's just do the last line before we go on to the fireworks piece. So when we have this ascension into the top, I think you're getting to B flat space on the A flat.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Right. So if I asked you right now to jump and touch your ceiling, what would you first do with your body?
Reach my hand up.
Nope, I want you to jump and touch it. Yeah, good. You bent your knees.
Yes.
Awesome. Can we have a spatial knee bend on the A flat before the jump to the B flat? That means we're getting bigger in pitch, just in range. You know, it's still the same size vocal cords doing it. But can we have a vocal knee bend, meaning a shorter, smaller space on the A flat? Notice I said space, not smaller vowel. I don't want you to put it in a schwa. I don't know how we put something invisible into something invisible. That's a discussion way bigger than me. However, we can have our molars be a little bit closer. If you can bring the molars a 0.5 centimeter closer on the A flat, so we get the Heilige, like a burger squeeze, slightly. I mean, so the contents don't fly out, but definitely a closure. And then reopen up top.
Okay.
Can we feel that once? Fantastic. So then we brought the physics of a knee bend into the process, and that it wasn't just an image. You brought your molars closer to each other. You can do that. You can sing an ah with your teeth touching if you want. You know?
That's another thing is I tend fighting the urge like constantly to like jam my jaw down for higher pitches. And one thing that we've been working on is kind of just letting this be consistent. More consistent at least.
And amen. And that consistency comes through structure, not through weakness. So I'm going to probably step on some toes, but it would be boring if I didn't. How many times have any of you ever been advised to do this? Blah, just go, Emily, do this. Blah, 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 right? That happens all the time. I've never had that demonstrated to me on a high B flat. Everyone chooses blah in the lowest note possible that moment. And I think going blah, blah, blah with no jaw is quite easy until it's blah, 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 where structure is required. So forgive yourself for having a jaw that's made of bone. It's totally good. Your personality of your sound is off the charts. As I jump around on my tablet here to find the other piece, do you mind telling us what you're going to sing?
Yes. While I do that, I'll get the setup because my tablet's being iffy.
Great.
But next, I will be singing Crude Furie from Sarse by Handel.
And this is it's his final aria, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is his final aria. He's throwing a massive fit.
Yeah. It's quite a piece. I have a countertenor colleague of mine who was performing this and said at one of the last performances, he and the conductor, they placed a bet. It was basically as fast as you can take this.
Oh gosh.
I'll never forget it. In this repertoire, who are some singers that you like?
I mostly listen to countertenors really for this. But I do love Joyce DiDonato's artistic interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Trying to think. What's his name?
Not a test. I was just curious. I always ask that question just to see sometimes what maybe some subtle inflections are built into our brain. I mean, going back to some of the things Frederick and I were talking about, it's hard to not have Pavarotti in the brain sometimes when you're looking to match colors. And I empathize when we're told as singers, don't listen to yourself, right? But you do know that your inner ear is always on. And I've gotten to the point now, as I've been doing this a longer time, that I actually encourage singers to listen to themselves and to get in their heads, because sometimes one of the problems is they're not thinking enough or listening enough. That is a possibility, and we have to translate singer psychology of stop listening to yourself. I don't think that's what it literally means. I think it literally means stop analyzing every sound you make and giving it a grade. That's different than physically not hearing, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, really, listen to what you're doing. We all learn the parts of the ear when we're in elementary school. They're actual things that are vibrating. And of course you're going to feel it and hear it. So lean into the joy of listening and feeling. I think it's a good thing. All right, let's do it. And hats off to you for singing this with a track.
Oh man, come on. Had it just. One moment.
Totally okay.
It
Again,
likes to disconnect.
visit NashvilleOpera.org, ladies and gentlemen. We're all going to tell our grandchildren about these days of figuring out the track. I wanted to just say for anybody watching, yeah, Christopher and Rebecca, our other young artists in the program this year, will be singing at this time next Monday when we repeat this class, and they're here with us watching today, which is great, and with really fun Zoom backgrounds.
I'm sorry. Hold on one moment.
No, figure it out. We're going to riff while you're doing that. On the wall behind me, you'll see this particular room I'm in where I'm teaching. I have some of my favorite people. If you're in a Nashville audience, you might appreciate that Miss Parton is up there, up just to the upper side of President Lincoln, and she is above Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid, my favorite movie of all time. His teaching methods are something I empathize with, and I really love. They're big, they're loud, they're repetitious, and they're behind the scenes. And I think that's what a good teacher does. And it's important that Emily's the star of the show. All right, let's do it.
Before it changes its mind.
Let's skip the repeat. Just for the clock's sake. Wow. Fantastic. Great. Emily, awesome. I'm going to go out on a hunch. Have you sung this aria a lot?
Yeah, I actually did this role when I was at ASU.
Get out. Okay, cool. Couldn't tell. No, it's really, really, your breathing pattern is really ingrained and that shows. Very impressive. This is so good. And you guys, this is just a personal thing. If there's a role that you've done and you can offer the role in your auditions, or especially not necessarily competitions, auditions for people and conductors and companies, I love seeing someone sing an aria that I know they've also done on stage, because I look at you can look at the resume and say, okay, they've rehearsed Cru de Fourier a million times. And I'm guessing in college, you probably rehearsed it a great deal. And so I always want to see what that looks like. So we don't have a lot of time. So I just want to jump on. Doing the second piece was, a luxury for us today. I think the coloratura, that you want sort of the vocal tract to feel like it's singing an E the whole time, to economize the air and have resonance in a way that you wouldn't earn by getting to hold a note. E has the highest frequency of resonance. If it's not a very modern idea of practice, if you read Garcia's treatise on singing, you'll see this suggestion to sometimes throw a guide in the teeth and practice your coloratura that way. Some people use a pencil, some people use a wine cork, whatever you have around, just as practice. You are smart, reasoning humans. I know you're not going to go out on stage and go while you're singing your coloratura, but just to get the jaw to stay stable a little bit. I think that would be a useful thing on the coloratura. So now here's where I drive people who work with me crazy. When you have coloratura passages like when it first starts at the bottom of 216, I would really practice singing each one of those notes individually in order. So what vowel are you singing on this coloratura? Cool. So to practice, sorry, I'm doing my hooting falsetto at you, to really make sure that your footprints of your muscle memory are accurate. So, because we run the risk in coloratura to have a muscle memory of the bookends of a lick, yada da 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 da, yada da 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 da, and the stuff in between is vague. But to really practice getting every pitch memorized, having a footprint in the snow, so that the person behind you can just step right in, that defined. So I would go through this coloratura and do that once. Do you have the score in front of you?
This is your 2-minute warning, Jason.
Great, thank you. We're just going to do one little 30-second practice thing, and then we're going to end. So if you were to look at measure 16 or in the Baronreiter, the first lick on the first 3 beats. It's that. Can we do those individually? Awesome. So right away, that second one didn't want to be precise. And then you kind of cleaned it up for the other ones. By taking these apart, then when you glue them together into fluid passages, they have clear footprints. And that kind of exacting positioning creates a better acoustic. And and actually it's you can have a full luscious tone and still sing with all of the T's crossed and the I's dotted. Rebecca was telling me earlier that she had studied with one of my favorite sopranos of all time, Carol Van Ness, who had one of the most ooga booga luscious sounds you've ever heard. No scoops. Every attack right on the money. Every piece of coloratura right on the money. And take that time to break this thing down that way so it stops being just a piece of art where the bookends are marked, because your voice has so much personality. I want to hear every drop of it. And so I would take this piece that you know very well and practice it that way. Go through with very, very individual attacks of each pitch and then go back and sing it legato. I hope we'll get a chance to work again and can really dig into this a little more. Emily, thank you. It's a different kind of bravery. It's a special kind of bravery for us to get up on live Zoom television and sing like this. So I really thank you. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much for
I want to, before I hand you off to Hannah and Nashville Opera, I just want to say thank you to everybody that decided to come in on a Monday afternoon and watch, and hopefully you're catching this later too. We'll do it again next week. Thanks. Hannah, it's all you.
Well, thank you, Jason, today for an excellent masterclass. I would again like to thank the Nashville Opera Guild for our Helen Brown Memorial Masterclass series. And make sure to join us next Monday at 1 p.m. to hear Jason Ferrante work with our soprano, Rebecca Howell, and our bass baritone, Christopher Kirkarudo. Thank you all for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time.